Alright, this is your last lesson before your quiz tomorrow. This will be factoring more than once, meaning every problem they say factor, where usually that's only doing that one time. You'll see that happen multiple times in the same problem. So you know how to factor. Let's just take a look at number one, how these usually go. I will give you two words of advice. The first one is always look for a GCF. And then after that, typically you want to look for M&A or AC, which are really the same thing. Just remember AC is the one where we multiply the first and last numbers together first, factor, and then we divide that number back in. Okay, so we're going to look at numbers 1, 3, 7, and 9. So first thing, if I look at 3, 6, and 24, I notice 24 doesn't have an X. So if we're talking GCF, I know they're not going to have an X. Let's move on to just the numbers. What's a number that goes into 3, 6, and 24? I'm saying 3, which would leave me with 3 divided by 3 would be 1, so I'm just not going to write that. Negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2x, and negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8. That way when I distribute, I end up back with my original problem. Okay, then step 2 is to see if you can do M&A, which I think we can do. If we multiply to negative 8, add to negative 2. Now that's just looking in here. So let's see, 2 factor bubbles, xx. If I multiply to a negative, the signs must be different. And if I'm thinking 8, I'm going to go with 4 and 2, and 4 is the bigger number. 4 gets the sign in the middle, 2 gets the other sign. There's your answer. Let's look at number 3. GCF between 6, 6 and 540. I would try 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and here again, I am going to write that one though. That's going to be our add to number, and then if I divide here, I get 90. So we are multiplying to negative 90, adding to 1. Signs are different again, opposite. And if I'm subtracting to 1, 9 and 10 make 90. 10's bigger, so it gets the sign in the middle. There's your answer. Pretty easy, right? Now that's all contingent upon whether you understand GCFs. If you need more help on GCF, go back into the calendar and watch that video. I'm going to move on to one a little harder. Let's go on to number 7 and 9. Do one of these at a time. Okay, so the GCF between 10, 24, and 64. The difference between this problem and the last problem is the last couple problems, I was just dividing by this first number here. But if we look at the second number and the third number, 10 does not go into 24, nor does it go into 64. So I'm going to have to think of another number that goes into all three of these. You might try 1, but that's not going to change very much. We know 10's not going to work. How about 5? No, those both end in a 4. So what about 2? 10 divided by 2 would be 5. 24 divided by 2 would be 12. 64 divided by 2 would be 32. And working backwards there and dividing, that helps me to know that I did this correctly. If I want to multiply forward, I can check, and I do indeed get back to the original. So last thing, factoring with M&A, well, M&A would only work if we had a coefficient of 1. Coefficient's that number out here, leading coefficient. But since that's a 5, we're going to multiply those last and first terms together. So that'll give me, let's do this to the side here. 32 times 5 is 160. And I'm going to do M&A with these two numbers. And I'll come back to this 5 in a second. Okay, so for the time being, these are both ends. Signs are different. That's happened 3 times in a row. Maybe we're just lucky. Which means I'm subtracting to 12. So if I think of the factors of 160 that subtract to 12, how about 8 and 20? right? Because 8 times 20 is 160, and then 8 minus 20 is negative 12, right? Next thing we have to do, remember, this is not necessarily just an M&A problem. This is an AC. Oops, wrong guy. We need to divide that 5 back into the problem. So if it reduces, keep it. Like here, we get minus 4, 20 divided by 5. And then if it doesn't, we just drag that guy to the front. Okay, there's your answer. We're going to look at just one more here, and then the rest will be on you. Number 9, if you want to try that one on your own, I'll let you pause the video. Alright, let's take a look at the answer. First, talking about the GCF between these 3 digits, first number that comes to mind is 5. All these end in a 5 or a 0, and they don't share any variables. So let's see, 7x squared plus 185. What times 5 gives me 185? Let's think. Well, I could divide this out. 5 goes into 18 3 times. That's a remainder of 3. 35, that would be 7. And then 50 divided by 5 is going to be 10. So here again, we have an AC problem. So we are multiplying to 70, adding to 37. X. Okay. Let's see, what multiplies to, I got it, 35 and 2. And this is a common mistake people make. I probably haven't said this enough. We stop here because we've already factored, but we got to remember to put that 7 back in. So our final answer here is going to be x plus 5 here. And you do need to keep bringing this 5 down, all the way down. That's part of our answer. And this last one is 7x plus 2. Remember, if the number doesn't reduce, we just drag it to the front. Alright, the rest of this assignment is on you, and you have the rest of the period to work. Make sure you study for the quiz tomorrow. The quiz will entail exactly what it says on the calendar. That's going to be difference of squares. An example may be something like this. And factoring multiple times like you've seen yesterday and today, as well as AC problems like you just saw with this guy right here. There. Alright, so we'll talk more tomorrow. Message me if you have any questions.